Welcome everybody to the Future Space Collective, where we explore the world of products for imagination. Today we're doing a version 2 follow-up to the first lifestyle projector comparison video done earlier this year against the Nebula Cosmos Laser 4K versus the XGIMI Horizon Pro 4K. If you're unfamiliar with video projectors or lifestyle projectors in particular, I'd advise you to start with that video where I go more in depth in explaining everything, and then come back to this video to see the latest comparison showcasing the JMGO N1 Ultra against the Dangbei Mars Pro versus the XGIMI Horizon Pro. All 4K projectors, all awesome pieces of tech, and they truly do aim to captivate and please. As always, be sure to check the price links in the description for the best deals if you're considering purchasing, as often I'm able to work out an additional discount from the supplier for my audience. All right, let's start with the differentiator. The JMGO N1 Ultra has a triple laser source, giving us extreme brightness and color contrast and accuracy. As well, because it has this bright light source, it can support daytime viewing as well. It's also got this gimbal style mount. As you can see here, you can tilt it up, all the way up, pointing at your ceiling if you want. And it's also got this rotating base function. So that's pretty cool, and that is something that does make it rather unique. So really quickly, we will go through the I/O and mounting of the projectors. So the JMGO, as we can see, has 2 HDMI imports, as well as a USB port to power an external source or something of that nature, a 3.5mm audio jack output, or if you want to run a line source to a stereo like I do. As well, you can see the power is actually located kind of on the right foot of the stand itself. There is a button on the front of the base right here. That's kind of how we can control, turn on and off. So the Dangbei Mars Pro 4K does have a stacked I/O set, 2 HDMI ports, 2 USB ports, headphone jack out, an optical out, a LAN port, and a power port. As well, it's got a single touch button on the top. Similarly to the Dangbei, the XGIMI has some good I/O as well. Optical port, 2 USB ports, 2 HDMI, our audio out, 3.5mm, and the power jack, as well as the Ethernet jack. One thing I will say about this is because it has this gimbal-like design, it definitely makes it super convenient if you want to travel with it and get portable with it. However, it does mean that it does have a proprietary mount. So if you're somebody like me who wants to mount this projector onto their ceiling, you will have to get their own proprietary mount system. I was able to find it on AliExpress for the JMGO N1 Ultra. The other 2 mounts, for example, are just your standard 1/4" 20 tripod threads on the bottom. Okay, so in terms of features, all 3 units are feature packed, including manual and autofocus, keystone, motion smoothing, color tuning, good built-in speakers, near silent operation. They have fast boot up, they have 3D support, and a myriad of other features you can come to expect from a lifestyle projector in this caliber of quality. I don't think any of these features are better or worse enough to be a deal breaker when comparing to each other. So I don't really see a reason to go in depth on any one of these features, other than know that I've tested each one of them and they all do the job just fine. Instead, I think the main differentiator really comes down to how well do these things actually perform. The image quality. So that is the main focus I've put into here for testing various sources of content to see how they perform against each other. So let's jump in and see the results.
Okay, first thing I do is film a blank white screen to get the brightness levels and to correct to the proper white balances for each of the projectors for the tests. So what I've done here is I've cut together a few different 4K demos that I've sourced and exported in my own editing software, meaning they don't have any HDR profiles. All the color profile is being handled solely by the projector profiles. That is the basic picture profiles that the projector does ship with. The only thing I've changed is I've ensured they are in their maximum power, maximum brightness levels. So the first thing we see is clearly the JMGO is the brightest of the bunch as advertised. But what did surprise me is the Dangbei and the XGIMI are coming in around the same brightness levels. As I know, the Dangbei should be a bit brighter than the XGIMI. And this is actually the case, as you'll see later on in the tests when we switch up the content sources. The picture on the Dangbei is also appearing quite contrasty as well. However, I wouldn't read too much into this, whereas it is not an HDR source. We can go into the picture settings and adjust the picture for each one of these projectors to make it more contrasty or less contrasty, or adjust the colors. In terms of the playback on the JMGO and the XGIMI, it is using the internal Android 11 system. The Dangbei does not ship with an internal operating system such as Android, so I used Amazon's new Fire Stick 4K Max, which gave me a pretty good result. All three projectors do have a motion smoothing or motion compensation mode, which I personally always immediately turn off, but perhaps this is something you may enjoy, particularly when watching sports. So here's some sports content now. I believe this is from the Japan 2012 qualifying matches, where Sony did some demo content here, shot in really high quality. You can see the color differences and how it renders the motion. Moving forward into a different demo reel, some buildings and some slow motion movement here. It is appearing quite a bit more contrasty and a bit darker. I'm not sure quite why this is on the Dangbei from this initial test. The only thing I can think of is it's because the file I'm feeding it, again, is something I exported from my editing software, Premiere Pro. Perhaps this is the reason. Maybe it likes to have more color managed content, what to do, what brightness levels to display at. Again, I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible, only commentating on the results and findings as we see here. So the results might appear obvious by now, but wait, I urge you to keep watching, as the results quite surprised me when we move into watching movies with actual HDR color profiles, like the one we're seeing on screen now. This is from Skyfall, the Bond movie, with an HDR10 source, and we can see the Dangbei, wow, does it ever pull from behind from the previous tests. It has really beautiful color. Again, the JMGO is still the brightest of the bunch, and we can see the XGIMI, this is where it starts to fall behind a little bit. They're all great picture, and again, you can go and manipulate the colors within all three. We are seeing from this example that the Dangbei actually has quite pleasing color out of the bunch, at least for this particular scene. And as I've done these tests already, you'll start to see a trend where it's really scene by scene, you might have a different preference as to which is your favorite looking image. I will say that the XGIMI is leaning a bit more towards that green side, so perhaps if you do go with the XGIMI, you might want to think about turning down that green level in the color settings. And really, this is a point to make that you can, of course, manipulate those color settings within every one of these projectors. So I'd urge you to experiment when you do pick a projector, whichever one you go with, to try to see what you can get out of the colors to make it look the best. The Dangbei, for example, is looking a tad more saturated in Bond's face. Maybe you like that, maybe you don't. Maybe you want to try boosting the saturation a bit on the JMGO if you go with that. Again, to the naked eye without a comparison, really hard to see these differences. They all do look great in real life. It's only when we do have this sort of side-by-side comparison, we can see the differences between the picture. Okay, moving into Blade Runner 2049 now, a very colorful and cinematically shot movie. I like the way the JMGO handles the highlights and tonality, especially in this particular scene here. It looks the best to me right here on her face, and it starts to become more apparent why the JMGO costs a bit more in its handling of the tonality in a complexly lit scene. You can see it really excels in not only the accuracy, but the dynamic range and contrast you do get with it. So let's keep on watching here. I thought this scene was really cool with the hard lines and the light to see how the projector displays that. You can see again the JMGO is pulling ahead slightly, having that better contrast in this scene. Here we are with a more bright white lit scene, and we can see how it renders the face under a more clean, sterile lighting. Again, JMGO, most accurate. Dangbei though has a pleasing color, not gonna lie. Okay, so we're moving into a movie called The Menu. It's a very well shot and well lit movie with a lot of close-ups on people, which gives us a great chance to see how skin tones are being rendered. And this scene in particular is pretty good, as we have the fire dancing in the background and we have a bunch of close-ups on the face. I think this is a very telling scene on how all the projectors display their colors. The JMGO, being a bit more accurate, handles those highlights really, really well. The dynamic range, the contrast. The Dangbei is a little bit warmer, a little bit more saturated, although it does have a very appealing and nice color to my eye. Perhaps you may want to experiment with adding a bit more warmth, red, or saturation to the JMGO if you like that warmer tone. And then we come to the XGIMI, which in my mind does need a little bit of tweaking out of the box to get it looking better. I do find this to be over sharpened and over saturated, leaning a bit too much into the green. I think though it's an easy enough fix to go into the picture menu, picture profiles, to fine tune the color, the sharpness, and the overall look of the picture. This is a key point to remember, as we are able to change the color balances, the sharpness, and the saturation of each picture. However, we cannot change the dynamic range of the projectors, the contrast ratios, or the brightness levels. That's kind of inbuilt, and those are the differences that we are really looking for in these comparisons. So focus more on that and not so much on the color, although the color is important, but it is able to be fine-tuned a little bit. Okay, so moving out of more narrative-based movies and into something a little different. This is from Planet Earth. It is a 4K HDR10 source to see how the colors are handled and how it looks. This is a night scene specifically, where we can see the JMGO really pops with that contrast and color just jumps right off the screen. These images are really pushing the projectors to their max, and we can see a bit of an edge again on the JMGO. Although the Dangbei does hold up quite well, and the XGIMI not too far behind. The JMGO does seem to really handle the highlights and that highlight roll-off quite nice. The gradients of colors from dark to light and the different shades in between. So what I've learned after taking a look at all three projectors and watching movies and different content with all three different projectors, it kind of really comes down scene by scene and what color is going to look best, because each projector has their own set of characteristics in how they render those colors.
Okay, so now that we've just gone through all of the image tests, just a few more notes with regards to operation and control before we wrap everything up. Okay, so starting with the JMGO, I found it gives us the most control over the image, the most options, and most menu settings. It's also pretty well designed and easy to navigate. The XGIMI does have good control over the image, and it's also very easy to navigate. The menus are all laid out pretty well, and it's super easy to use. The Dangbei, on the other hand, it does give you that required control over the image. However, there are more clicks to navigate into that menu setting, as there's no sort of quick button on the remote. You're gonna have to sort of navigate out of your source input operating system, like your Android or Apple TV or Google Home, and go into the menu settings from the main homepage. So the built-in operating system does feel just a little bit less refined than the other two in terms of user experience, but again, not a deal breaker. Okay, so what are my final thoughts between these three projectors? The JMGO N1 Ultra clearly comes out on top as the winner from a sheer overall picture quality and brightness standpoint. As well, it does have that refined menu that's easy to navigate, offering tons of control. And of course, it has this gimbal design, making it ideal for transport and setup if you want to take it on the go. It easily earns its place as the most expensive of the three projectors. Now, the Dangbei sports some surprisingly good color out of the box when fed some HDR10 content and paired with a proper input source that supports that HDR10, like a new Apple TV 4K or Amazon Fire Stick 4K Max. This projector is certainly a great option that can project a good picture at a bit of a lower price point if you can deal with its quirks. Lastly, the XGIMI, with a bit of tweaking, easily holds up as the best budget option of the bunch, given it's got its built-in Android TV, just like the JMGO, along with a very reliable and easy to use user experience, all at the lowest price of the bunch. Again, price links are in the description below. Sometimes I'm able to get an additional coupon code, so make sure you check what's going on in the description down below to make sure you're getting the best deal, no matter which one of these you want to go with. So that just about wraps it up for version 2 of the best 4K lifestyle projector. I hope you guys enjoyed. This is the Future Space Collective, where we explore the world of products for imagination. See you in the next one.